Oi oi my drillas, it's your gears and Big Donny Cow here for another MoP remix video where today I'm going to be telling you guys what sort of gems, cogwheels and tinkers you should be running as a warlock regardless of spec. So without further ado, let me just hit the clean up button on my bags and let's first talk about meta gems. So you're going to notice, hey, there you go, there's one I'm using already, Lifestorm. Lifestorm's exceptionally good when paired with another tinker as well, or even if you just have high crit and versatility, it's going to do big damage and healing. And I'm going to get on to why you still want that healing, even if you're at like max health in a minute. When I'm talking about one of the tinkers, I'll link it back to Lifestorm, so keep watching. Ward of Salvation this one's good for everyone. But only because of the cheese runs that happen. If you care more about your own personal performance, you don't want to do the cheese strat, then bin Ward of Salvation off. Funeral Pyre is also very solid. It gives you a lot of intellect for a minute, and the negative aspect of Funeral Pyre really doesn't matter for you. As a warlock, you should just be healing right up. I'd say these two are your go-to meta gems for the entirety of what do you call it, MoP remix. Like, if you want to do some cheeses as well, then Ward Salvation, of course, great in big coordinated groups. You can use Lifestorm to cheese in really big groups. Like, this is great in LFR for just quickly nuking a boss down. So yeah, I'd recommend running that. Funeral Pyre, yeah, it's great if you want to put power in your own spells. Other meta gems, Zao, it runs the risk of taunting everything, so probably not the best idea. You could run it, especially when you're juiced in gear and doing lower content like an LFR, especially in AoE. I guess if you do like the LFR Mantid Council, then yeah, you could probably get away with it. Precipice of Madness, this one kind of sucks for you, because not only does it put you at 20% health, but it also puts your pets at 20% health, and when that shield's gone, it doesn't feel good. And yeah, chance of your pets dying after this is relatively high. Soul Tether, it's not that good of a gem in general. I'd ignore it. Tyler Spirit does not affect you as a Demonology Warlock. It does seem like, I don't know if it's bugged, but it's Affliction and Destruction. Sometimes it's working, other times it's not. This is one of those where I'd say get one of your buddies to run it. Locus of Power, it's a decent one for you. I don't think it contends with Funeral Pyre or Lifestorm as much, but it does still give you some nice stats, and you might be able to blast with it, but with all the diminishing returns with stats in the higher end, the raw damage you get from Lifestorm, and the fact that intellect doesn't get diminishing returns with Funeral Pyre, like, just makes it so much better. This might be a good early game meta gem for you. Shiji, I've not really used this. I've not really seen a reason to use this. Warlocks themselves have enough power, so this is kind of just seems like an irrelevant gem to me. Thundering Orb is great for doing AoE clearing, but just realize after it, like, especially as Demo and Athlete, like, you haven't had that set up to ramp, so yeah, you're gonna have to press this in after you can start doing your ramp, and there's a couple of seconds that you're not getting your ramp ready, so you are gonna see quite a bit of a dip in DPS before you start rising back up. Oblivion Sphere is somewhat decent, especially in AoE. I personally don't see the value in running it, as a lot of our damage on all three specs tends to be quite sustained rather than a massive burst. So Yeah, no, I'd sack that off. Okay, so now we've talked about meta gems. Let's talk about Cogwheel gems. So, I am personally running Heroic Leap. Why? Because it's a ton of fun. I love Heroic Leap. One of my favourite abilities in the game. Realistically, if you want the absolute best, I do believe Blink is like the meta choice. That's what a lot of people seem to be raving about. As for other Cogwheels, Soul Shape is okay, but you don't need that much mobility, I'd say, and it's quite disruptive to your rotation. You kind of just want to be one button, instant move, done. Death's Advance, kind of useless considering the fact that we can have Burning Rush active at all times. The only thing that stops is you getting knocked back, but we can put down a Demonic Circle anyway when we know a knockback's coming, so yeah, kind of useless. Dark Pact, we already have this. I mean, if you want a second Dark Pact, then sounds funny, go for it. Kind of useless. Spirit Walker's Grace, I feel like you don't have to move that much to warrant this being worth it. And when you do have to move, it tends to just be like 2 seconds of movement. So, yeah, I don't think Spirit Walker's is worth it. Spirit Walk, also, we have Burning Rush. Like, this is just an 8-second Burning Rush, which also removes roots and whatnot. I'm not convinced. Door of Shadows, it's like Heroic Leap, but with a cast time. I don't see the value in that. Pursuit of Justice, you could run this. I could see, like, you could run this, but with the amount of movement speed you get as you're getting more juiced capes and gear and whatnot, like, I'm just sitting here playing it for fun, you know. Not done any of these big farms that a lot of people have done. No hyper spawns and whatnot. I've already got quite a lot of speed, so grand scheme of things, 8% doesn't really do much. Especially when you're like running Burning Rush as well, and you've already got the Windweaver Tinker, which I'll talk about soon. Wild Charge could be a good one if you want to get close to your enemies. But, oh no, it's fly to a nearby ally. Maybe less so. Stampeding Roar, if you want to be a support, sure, but this ain't going to do much for you personally with Burning Rush. Vanish is not going to do much when your pets are still going to be standing there like, "Where's the master? Oh, made it!" So, you know, you're still going to stay in the fight. Leap of Faith is amazing if you want to troll people. Outside of that, nah, don't bother. Trailblazer, it's okay, but it's like, I keep Burning Rush active all the time, so not important. Disengage, also a decent Cogwheel gem to take. You know, you could run that. Anyway, now it's time for Tinker Gems. So first I'm going to talk to you guys about the one that interacts with Lifestorm, which is Searing Light. So what it does, collects some of your healing and expels it as damage. Every target that gets healed by you has a little debuff on them. Buff on them. 3 seconds long. When that pops, does damage to everything around it. So your entire team will have this buff on them. So what you want to do, get everyone melee stacked in like an LFR. You got like 25 people there. You pop Lifestorm, deal big damage with a Lifestorm, and then 3 seconds after that, boom, Searing Light does massive damage. It's pretty darn good. I'd recommend it. Brilliance is another good one. 5% verse is always nice, but on all 3 specs, you will regenerate soul shards. The only one, well, no, it is a little bit rough for both Affliction and Demonology, but Destro really does get the most value out of Brilliance, as it's almost constantly giving you soul shard fragments, whereas the other 2 specs, it's kind of just every now and then, oh, another soul shard. But it seems to not work for Affliction and Demonology in combat, but it will put you at 5 soul shards out of combat, which is still very nice to have. Memory of Vengeance is like you've got a free 1% intellect, and as you're getting more and more gear, this is more and more potent. Especially if you're running Burning Rush during fights, and there's some fights which do some big damage, then boom, you're getting some of your stats boosted because of that. So I'd definitely recommend it. Now, one thing I'm going to mention before I go on to this is let's take a look at Explosive Barrage. It does quite a bit of damage with quite a lot of specs. Your abilities have a chance to launch a barrage of fire at enemies. Each missile inflicts fire damage. Woo, amazing. However, Warlocks are famously not known for being great at proccing things. And while eventually our procs, like when you've gotten enough gear and cloak power, your procs will do a decent amount. It's better to go for non-proc tinkers. As a Warlock, you're just going to get more value out of that. So this is why I'm running Hailstorm, because it's guaranteed to go off and it does some really big damage. Even, like on raid and AoE, it blasts. Lightning Rod I run as well because it just gives that much crit. Does quite a nice dot as well, and gives your group some crit too. So, you know, why not get them bosses killed quicker? And Kindle, you get a very big shield, and you get a bit of haste, and your enemies take some damage from you. Personally, I think that's worth it. Because of the duration of it being 60 seconds, yeah, it's fine that this is a proc, because it lasts long enough to make up for the fact that you don't proc things too often. So here on my shoulders I've got a lot of proc stuff. Incendiary Terror, I think this is a great single target proc. Also on AoE it can proc quite a bit. But yeah, just a flat out big damage, and it CCs, amazing. If you don't want to run that, then I'd advise swapping it for Meteor Storm, which does big AoE damage and stuns them for the same duration. Sunstrider's Flourish means your crits will they'll go big AoE explosion, which is very nice, especially when you get quite a bit more crit. Like, as you can see, I'm a bit low on crit, but I still see quite a lot of benefit from this gem. So yeah, and it's also guaranteed, just on a 1 second cooldown. And Wildfire, you have a chance to inflict it. Normally you're keeping this up quite well, and it does quite a lot of damage, but sometimes you can get unlucky and it just doesn't retain uptime. Now, Quick Strike, this is a Demonology only one. It does seem that Quick Strike is applying to our pets, so our Felguard's getting extra hits, our Dreadstalkers are getting extra hits, and it is doing lots of damage. Oh, and our Vilefiend as well. The best part about this for Demonology is this talent right here. Yeah, so because you're getting extra auto attacks on the Dreadstalkers, you're getting extra chances to trigger more Dread Bites, leading to even more damage. Now, you wouldn't run this as Destruction or Affliction, especially if you play my builds which run Grimoire of Sacrifice. Utterly pointless. So, what could you run instead? Well, Mark of Arrogance can sometimes be an excellent choice, as it will deal big damage when the bosses are doing damage to you and whatnot. Say on the Malkarak fight as well. Seems to be bugged, so worth taking it. You could maybe run Tink's Master Shield just for a bit more survivability if you wanted to. Storm Overload doesn't really seem to be doing too much damage. However, it does do a lot of damage for other specs, so this is one to keep in mind for now. Something like Brittle's great for AoE. Cold Front's another great defensive ability you could throw in. Anchor of Reincarnation for yourself, just in case something goes wrong. Oh, and Vindication is an amazing choice, like, regardless. But yeah, I think if you want some extra DPS, you'd run Barrage or Meteor Storm. Probably Barrage, to be honest. If you want some extra team play capability, Vindication or Cold Front. Most likely Vindication, though. Especially if you've got Searing Light equipped. Further doesn't really do much, and Opportunist won't proc in raid fights because they can't be stunned. But if you're doing dungeons, then yeah, you're gonna be able to proc Flourish like crazy. The next pick for all specs is Slay. This is just amazing to have on everything in the game. Like, you won't always get to proc it, but when you do, it's basically just knocking off 10% off of anything you fight. So it's worth running it just in case other people don't proc it and you do. It's just that OP. And then Windweaver. So you get a flat 5% movement speed increase, and then you have a chance to start a mini bloodlust for your party for 10 seconds. It's very good, very powerful. And yeah, oh, excuse me, that's not very professional of me. But yeah, so those are what I'd advise. You can run some other stuff. I forgot to mention Roll's another Cogwheel gem we can use. If you like it, go for it. That's what I'd say with Roll. Yeah, other tinkers. Coral you can use if you need to make yourself tankier. I know when I first hit max level, I went and did a scenario and it was really hard to do. Like, the scaling was not in my favour, so I just threw this on. Vindication, Tank Master Shield, had Searing Light, and yeah, I blasted it. Managed to live long enough to keep going. Vampiric Aura, this one's kind of useless for us. Leech ain't the greatest as a Warlock, like, especially Demonology, when your demons will just steal your Leech. So yeah, I wouldn't really recommend this. And the Avoidance one, yeah, maybe. Because Avoidance is still good, but this is strictly a maybe. But yeah, like I say, Storm Overload, I haven't really seen results with this, and it's more tuned around 1 minute builds, which we ain't playing. So yeah, it's kind of leave it to the rep paladins, I'd say. Static Charge, useless for you. Like, you're only really going to be going into melee as if you're playing Lifestorm, and you don't want to keep moving every now and then, so no. Holy Martyrdom, I wouldn't recommend this. I think that's a waste. Righteous Frenzy, I think this is also a bit silly, because you're not really healing people directly, and to be honest, someone else is probably running this, so you'll still get the benefit from it anyway. Deliverance, yeah, not really worth it. Savior, also not worth it. This is more healing stuff. Warmth could be worth it in a group where your healers are not pulling their weight to combo with Vindication and the Lifestorm stuff, but more than not, nah, I wouldn't recommend. Yeah, like I say, Brittle can be quite nice. Vindication's an amazing pick. I've had it on almost all the time up until now, where I'm pretty much soloing any LFR wings, and we've got our own team for the other raids, so it just doesn't feel necessary now. Victory Fire, I haven't really seen results from this. Like, on pen and paper it should be good, and on other specs it blasts, but haven't seen results in this on Warlock. Further, I've not seen do anything decent. Maybe that'll change at max gear. Not too sure though. But yeah, that's just a lengthy overview of all the tinkers and Cogwheel gems and meta gems to run as a Warlock in MoP Remix. So, my personal recommendations: Funeral Pyre, great. Lifestorm, also great, especially if you run Searing Light with it as well, but you don't have to. As Demolock, run Quick Strike. As Athlete or Destruction, swap that out for another DPS or Survivability tinker of your choosing. Probably between Incendiary Barrage, Meteor Strike, Mark of Arrogance, Tankmaster's Shield, and Vindication. Slay is one for all specs. Wind Weaver and Brilliance, run that. Memory of Vengeance, run that. If you're not running Lifestorm, probably don't run Searing Light and swap that out for one of the DPS ones. Arcanist Edge and Fervor just aren't really worth it. I haven't really seen any results from them, even though we have high absorb shields. Hailstorm is great, you can guarantee that. You don't have to rely on the procs for it. Lightning Rod is great, Enkindle is great. Incendiary Terror, Sunrise of Flourish, Wildfire, amazing picks. And yeah, that is it. That is it for what you should run. Anyway, I hope that's helped you guys decide on what Tinkers to play throughout this event. And if you have any questions, please leave us in the comment below. I know it's a lengthy video, but I really wanted to just make sure you got all the details possible. Okay, take care guys. Sweet.